Hi there, my name is James Barton, also known as Boombox, the writer of the Insight and Discussion series. This is the Odds Men broadcast. As a warning, some of the content in this may not be suitable for minors, in which case, you should make sure that you're listening with a parent or guardian who is responsible. Now then, my two guest hosts this evening are...
My name is Brett. I go by Ogre Barbarian on the Reddit. I have authored the Team Crafting series along with Math is Your Friend and Oh Captain, My Captain.
Hi, this is DP0427, also known as Daniel. I'm the author of most of the financial, marketing, gameplay, and accessibility analysis series on the Reddit. I'm one of the full-time mods, and these two guys are now part-timers, it seems.
Oh, cool. You gotta just put it on the table like that. Anyways, we got a pretty good show for you guys tonight. Of course, this is just rehearsal, but for those of you listening, hi there. Glad you guys could hear me sound 15. Another time, actually. I'll try to sound older later. So we're going to be talking about various things, the state of the game in the meta. We're going to look over the past month, talk about what we think about it. And of course, we have our personal thoughts on certain things, discussing the community, so on and so forth. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this. So, state of the game. So, I'll go ahead and start out on this one as the most salty player here. I find the state of the game to be a touch disappointing. Now, don't get me wrong. They've certainly made some pretty good strides forward in terms of, producing content, things like that, especially when compared to back when the game launched. But, given how long it's taken, I expected a bit more. The hero challenges still haven't been fixed back to their glory Ivy days. It's still rather hard to harvest up enough resources to either level your characters or get your skills up, so on and so forth. Again, certainly not as bad as it was at some points, but still not up to where it should be. I feel like the power creep in terms of just how much you need to get by has been steadily increasing, and the output of the different things you can do in this game have not kept up to that inflation. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I have to agree with a lot of what you said there, but at the same time, I have to disagree with some of it too. The game has definitely come a long way from when it first started, and I think it's a lot easier now for newer players to start the game. That's definitely something that I think has improved strides and strides. It's a lot easier to start playing and start gaining access to strong characters early on. Now, it is still very much a grind, like you were saying, to get all of the gear, the skill materials, the shards and stuff for characters that aren't in events. That hasn't really changed. So I would like to see that improve a little bit, but otherwise, having access to way more hero shards than you did in the first, you have access to characters you didn't even have before. So there's definitely a lot of things that have improved.
Okay. I'm pretty much on the same page as Brett with what he's saying. And what you're saying too, you guys were talking about a lot of different things at the same time. I kind of just want to split this up into different things. Some of the things that you mentioned I agree with, and some of them I disagree with, mainly for what they add to the game or what they take away from the game. I think we can all kind of agree that farming, especially shard farming and material farming, they still haven't really progressed much in that sense. They've made certain shards a little bit more accessible by adding new content to the game, which is great. But material farming still is pretty much the same as it was since global launch. I don't think it really has improved that much in that sense. And also, I think that most people can agree, especially when you get to Gear 9, Gear 10, you see that there's a huge imbalance for certain materials. And I don't really understand the reason why. I just actually did the upgrade missions just before starting today, and you have to farm 92 of a certain level 3 material for each affinity to actually get 4 or 5 of them at Gear 10, which is stupid because the other ones you have hundreds and hundreds of them, but the other one you're always at 0 basically. So
Mm-hmm.
the one,
Just want
Yeah.
to mention
Yep, go
the
ahead.
ping. So I don't need it. There it is again.
oh, the pinging, it's people joining the thing. I'm trying to figure out how to mute that. Let
Oh,
me see
I mean,
here.
it's all good. If it's people, then yeah. Hi, people.
It's people joining to the
Hey!
Discord. It's people joining to the Discord, and it's like that dinging noise whenever they join. I'm not sure. Like I
Right,
actually
right.
muted the Rediverse, so it doesn't actually give me that, but it's still giving me that. I guess that doesn't actually do
Well,
anything.
it's all good. I'm not too worried about it. Honestly, the people that are in here, I appreciate those guys. And, a little pinging here and there. We're just rehearsing. It's no big deal.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
It's not going to throw off our flow.
Okay. So let's. What was I saying? We're talking about the things that I think that actually have improved to keep things a little bit positive, because we are bashing a little bit on it. What Ogre was saying, I think that in terms of the whole game in general, that has come a long way since last November. The biggest thing for me is the level of content that has been created since, and as well the UI. The UI has changed quite a bit. Not many people actually mention that, but in the last update, one thing that actually I was thinking about for a while, and I didn't know why they didn't do it in the first place, was move that community center thing to the right side. Like it was there was too many things on the left side of the screen, and they just moved it to the right side. It just made me feel like there was much more balance to the UI, and a lot of what players wanted, being able to do like gear runs or shard runs directly from the character selection menu.
Yeah, that was nice.
Adding Speed Force to that, like they actually listened to a lot of the things that we wanted them to implement. So actually, in a sense, that actually keeps me very optimistic, especially the fact that people are voicing their opinions on the forums and on Reddit. So it gives me a sense of, I guess, a little bit of hope, so to speak, for the future.
May I interject on a few things?
Go ahead.
So, first off, as everyone knows, DC Legends is hopeless. There's no hope to be had. But also, a few things. One, and again, this is me being salty, but I'm going to act as the sort of devil's advocate here, so please pardon me on it. While I will agree that there were some nice quality of life changes recently, there are changes that shouldn't have had to even be added because they should have been there in the first place. A lot of these things are no-brainers that we've been asking for months, and they only just now added it in. In addition to that, they're very well aware of the community perception on the gear events, and especially the big 500 shard events, how people have been saying over and over, Captain Cold event sucked, there is nothing to gain from it, the Ivy event was the sweet spot. And they're like, oh yeah, we hear you, we know this. And yet every single month it's the same event as Captain Cold. I think people have stopped complaining by this point. And like, let's say, it's a touchy subject, the hackers, right? Hackers have been in the game since the beginning of the game. And yet only now they're making strides here and there. I understand it's an ongoing process, but if they're able to do it so easily now, why not way long ago? And about that community center, seems like there's a pretty awesome community that it doesn't include. One that I'm a part of.
Hear, hear.
Yeah,
And the thing is I don't get it, because the Reddit, in my opinion, is where all of the content is. Not to brag, of course. We've cultivated a community that's very, very heavy in information. You've got your character guides, which need to be updated. My bad. You have, like, the buying analysis from you. You have Ogre's captain analysis and his map is your friend things. Things that newer players really need to see. And yet all they get is the main forum, where the last guide there was talking about how broken Suicide Squad Deadshot is 5 or 10 months ago. Like, they need to definitely expand that to include the Reddit, because we're a legitimate community. If anything, I would say we're the best community they have. But there's absolutely no indication that they have any plans to actually consider us as such.
yeah. I can't really disagree with most of what you're saying, but I guess there's things that we need to talk about. Let's divide this up and talk about this in sections then, because I think that we're sort of mashing a lot of stuff together.
Sure.
Let's.
So how about
Mhm.
I'll MC this one real quick, and I want you guys. I'll bring up the topic. You guys already know my thoughts on all of the topics, and we'll go from there. So first things first, let's talk about the reward systems and things like red alert and alliances. Do you guys think it's an improvement? Where do you think it could be improved? Oh,
Reward systems. Reward systems are they've definitely improved. They've definitely added a lot of content there. I think the red alerts, when they added, I was already a level 70 player and I already had maxed out characters and stuff. It's very hard to go through for me. I have still yet to beat it, personally. So I can't really. I know it's really good for players that can take advantage of it because they get the opportunity to get those shards that are otherwise impossible to get. So I do appreciate it. It's really good, and I've wanted to several times start over and start a new account and start fresh and see what I could do with it and go from there. But I don't have the time to do that anymore, like I did back in the day when I did my 1 month run.
Okay.
So, there's definitely been a lot of improvements.
Okay.
what do you think, PP?
From my opinion, I guess we're talking about red alerts first. I think red alerts is a great addition to the game, mainly just because of the fact that it's free. It's completely free. It's the only thing in the game that we have that you can do regardless of what point of the day you're in. Like if you've just spent all your PvE energy or PvP energy or whatever, you can always play it. And so given that, I mean, people are going to complain for the sake of complaining. But if you can complete it, great. If you can't complete it, well, try next time. But you'll eventually get there. You know what I mean? So I think I was like with Ogre when Red Alerts first launched. I was also level 70 with a lot of maxed out characters. So the difficulty curve was super high for me. But I think after the first month or two, I was able to build up my roster, like to sort of get a good rotation, a good balance, and make it a lot deeper. And now I clear it every single day. So, okay. Apparently, people can't hear me. Can you guys hear me now?
A little bit quiet.
Can you guys hear me now? Can you guys hear me now? Still quiet?
I think he's typing.
I can hear you fine. I don't know.
Can you
Yeah.
guys hear me now? Is it okay now? Sounds better. A little bit better. Okay.
Jesus, give him a second, DP. My God.
You can only type so fast.
That's true.
But that's.
I have one more thing to add there.
Oh,
I have one more thing to add there. Because of the difficulty, I appreciate the challenge and everything, but honestly, it's just another PvP. And honestly, PvP has become very boring for me. It's just all the same now. I don't even enjoy PvP.
The one thing.
So, I mean, Red Alerts is great, but I don't enjoy it.
Okay. I agree with you with the fact that it's basically like playing PvP, and basically most people will have the same opinion of it being PvP without renewed cooldowns, right? So it's the fact that you have cooldowns that carry over, which make it even harder than PvP from other people's perspective. If I were to play devil advocate in this case to sort of err on the side of in favor of red alerts, it's the fact that because you have cooldowns and because you have this sort of different dynamic to a survivor mode, really, it sort of makes you explore different avenues and different team compositions that you wouldn't normally. Like in PvP, for example, if you have like a meta team or if you have a staple 4 or 5 characters that you always just use, it's never really going to be any different. But the fact that the cooldowns introduce that element of difficulty, you actually have to start using people that you wouldn't use normally, which actually makes it more interesting and challenging from different perspectives. But that's exactly what it is supposed to be, though, because people assume that Red Alerts is supposed to be just free, and then therefore free equals free stuff, but because you can't beat it, they're getting upset about it. I think that it's a very challenging thing to do, and then the fact that you can, if you work your roster and if you develop your characters in a certain way to take advantage of that, you'll make the most out of it. But it's very difficult to have such a deep roster especially for new players. So I definitely know that curve, that difficulty curve, is definitely there. So I'm not really sure how to tackle that though.
No, no, yeah, and that wasn't my complaint. My complaint was that I'm tired of seeing the same 10 characters in every Red Alert team that I fight. I want to have diversity. We have 60 some odd characters in this game. Give me some diversity.
That's true.
Yep.
If these characters are not based on PvP teams and they're just characters that are maxed out or whatever, that I have to fight, that's fine, but give me some diversity.
I agree there.
I'm tired of fighting Green Arrow. I am tired of it.
But
In both of his forms.
one point I'll add to what you just said there, which actually is a little bit of an ironic point, is that the fact that there's a little bit of a lack of diversity actually makes it easier for me to clear it constantly, because I've noticed that a few characters that pop up in rotation is usually Zatanna, Cyborg, Huntress, Harley Quinn, what's the other one? Yellow Lantern, Sinestro, right? Green Lantern,
What kind of
Green Lantern, Hal
red
Jordan.
alerts are they giving you?
Well, what I'm saying is that there are,
Wonderful
if
reverse flash.
you look through all of the different threats before you start going through them, there's actually a few very easy teams if you just look for them, right? And what I do is I try and pick those guys off first, and then when the list renews, the threat list renews, I look at the next set of threats to see if I can see that. And usually there's been like 3 or 4 or 5 threats in a row where it's just the same team. They're just shuffling the order around. Literally the same 4 characters, except now Cyborg's the leader, or now Zatanna's the leader, or for some reason Huntress is the leader. Right? So, and that happens a lot. And I don't think that this is ironically probably a problem with their algorithm. But it is an advantageous thing if you can look for it. And in my case, I probably finished like half of the threats with just those easy rollover teams. So, anyways, that's one
Alright,
small point.
Well, we're coming up on a bit of a time scrunch here. So we gotta move on to our next
Yeah, let's
topics,
move
of
on.
course.
Let's move on.
But okay, so outside of Red Alerts, also alliances. What do you guys think about alliances? What do you think about the rewards? What do you think about the inclusion? How do you think it could be improved? Let's hear it.
Ogre, do you want to go ahead? You want to go first? Ogre, hello?
Hell, I'll go first then.
Okay, you go first.
Well, as far as the whole Red Alerts thing goes, just to piece in my little 2 cents, Red Alerts are fine. Could be better in terms of character diversity, but frankly, it's not that hard to beat. I actually rolled a new character account some time ago when Red Alerts launched, and yeah, as a new player, you can basically just Cape Crusader Batman your way through it all. But as far as alliances go, I think alliances are fantastic, but at the same time, I feel like they limit design space in a way, which is weird to say, but like there's certain
Am I back?
content.
Yeah.
Oh, hello. We're just talking about alliances.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is, I feel like there's certain things that people strive for. Everyone wants to be a top 100 alliance. Everyone wants to be this and that. But it's, from my WoW days, I've learned, it's hard to get 30 people in the same place at the same time, all working towards the same goal. And I actually recently disbanded my own alliance, Legion of Doom. They went off and became an even better alliance. I'm so proud of them too. But it comes down to the fact that if even one person gets tired, you could find yourself out of top 100 when you've been there the whole time. So it's good in the way that it encourages teamwork. It allows new players a way to get certain shards that they can't get otherwise. It gives you something to aim for. But as a downside, it makes it so that you have to rely on other people. On top of that, some of the timing on some of the things is a bit wonky, like PvP challenges on the PvP reset day, or, having to do heroics just in general kind of sucks because you're either spending your energy on characters you want, or you have to spend it efficiently to maximize points, which kind of works counteracting to one another. It's usually never the same thing. But that's my thoughts on it. What do you think, Ogre?
Yeah, alliances definitely could use some tweaking. They definitely offer a lot of things in the reward I love the rewards that are offered. The shards are great. There are amazing characters in there that are incredibly hard to get or impossible to get elsewhere. So that you cannot argue with. I do think that the way you earn points needs to be adjusted. I think honestly we need to have some sort of raid boss or something rather than a go into heroics or go into PvP with these characters. Because honestly, not everybody has those characters. Not everybody wants to use those characters. The entire point of this game when I started playing it was to use characters I wanted to use, not use the same 10 characters all the time. You know, I got lucky in the fact that Flash and Grundy are on my list of characters that I wanted to use, and they pop up a lot. So, but I swear to God, I never was going to use Hal Jordan. Hate him. But he's on that damn thing all the time.
If I may add in something too, it also does bother me that they make such terrible characters the choices for the PvP events. Like, I have the choice between Hired Gun Deadshot, which is a good character, or Chemo and Doomsday, and I'm like, I wonder which one I'm gonna pick.
I'm always going to use Chemo, you know that. You know I am. I have that full maxed out.
See, now, if to take a different point of view from where Ogre's branching off here, in terms of alliance missions, I'm sort of the opposite. I'm more of the, what's the word here in Magic terms would be like a shark. I'm the sort of standard, boring, like play the best characters type of player, right? So I always had like the typical like Hal Jordan, Green Arrows, like even from the beginning I had Zatanna. Like I started looking at the guys that were probably the strongest out of the easier to farm characters and started farming them. Nobody boo me. But anyways, what happens is that when they have a character like I don't know, Dr. Fate come up, or somebody that's not really used much, like even Harley Quinn. I started playing Harley Quinn a long time ago, but then she got nerfed, so I just left her. I forgot about her, and then she comes up a lot, for example. Even Batman Cape Crusader, he comes up a lot, and I just got him to Gear 10 today. You know what I mean? So that's sort of like where I'm at, and I think a lot of people are like me too, from that point of view. So when certain alliance missions comes up, there are days where I put in zero contribution, and me being the leader of my alliance is actually not a great thing. Lead by example, etc. But I told my guys, hey, speaking from the point of view of people and how involved they want to get into an alliance, there are days when you can commit a lot, and there's days where you can't really contribute at all. So I tell my guys, hey, if you can't put in anything today, put in 0, and then tomorrow put in double if you can. Right? Find the day that you have a character that you can do it, and do as much as you can on that day. But getting back to the topic of alliances and how I think it affects the game now, it actually adds a whole new dynamic to the game, which I think a ton of people were waiting for. When did it come out? Like March or something, or February? I can't remember.
Oh no, it came out in the end of February.
Was that it? Oh yeah. So, that was a huge addition to the game, and everybody was talking about that for the first 3 or 4 months since the game was launched, right? So people were really happy.
Give us alliances.
Yeah, exactly. So that going back to the state of the game in general, it's a hugely positive change, I think. So.
All right.
And I don't disagree.
Ooh.
I don't disagree that it's a huge positive change.
Okay.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
It is a very positive change. Okay. I just wish it had been a little different than it was, because honestly, when I hear alliances, it means a community. It means, a team. And honestly, the way everything is set up, it really doesn't, honestly, to me, it does not foster that feeling.
I have to agree with Ogre. It feels less like a team and more like just a bunch of individuals who happen to be moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
I would not be mad if they introduced like alliance events where you had your entire alliance working towards one single thing, like whatchamacallit, like boss mode, raid mode,
right.
Things like that, where your alliance.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying before.
Yeah. So I agree with that. I think alliances could be more, but for what they are, it's not bad. So
Yeah.
let's move on to something you guys are probably very good at talking about. I'll just stand out of this one for the most part. Uh, Shop prices,
Ah.
money, lucrative action, fiscal responsibility, if you will. Me personally, I mean, I don't mind tax, whatever. I'm just kind of a guy. I'm a little bit of a whale, but not really. I just don't like it when they nerf characters right before putting them on sale, or put characters on sale, then nerf them. But that's my own 2 bits that I'll cover later on.
Yeah,
So what do you guys think about pricing? What do you guys think about sales? Let's hear about it from the 2 financial gurus of the community.
I have a lot to say on this, so
All
I'll
right,
go first.
Well, I appreciate that. Go ahead and slam me after I'm done. Honestly, I think the shop prices have come a long way because when we first started, like there was nothing but the 8,000 pack. Like that was it. There was nothing else. So honestly, they've come a long way in creating different price levels, different, shard values and different things. So it's definitely changed for the better for the most part. There are the ones that are, 16,000 for 150 shards, 200 shards, whatever. And it's like, I'm not going to spend 16,000 on that. I don't have 16,000. I barely have 6, So like, I'm terrible with my gems. I mostly just spend them on upgrade events, and that's kind of where I draw the line for the most part. Although I did just buy Supergirl to finally get her to L1 because I was one of the lucky few that suffered from the PvP bug way back when she was around and was at 0 trophies the entire month. So I had that lovely joy. And somehow I managed to survive playing the game through that. So I figured I might as well stick with this game for at least a year after that. So I'm still here.
Okay.
An interesting perspective. As a quick question to the both of you, Ogre, obviously you'll be answering first on this one. So back in the day, the average price per shard was a set certain amount because we went off of the, the, what was it, 4K for 50 deal, right? That was the standard. Do you guys think that is still the standard price for a character or what?
Well, that's a loaded question because it is still the standard price, but at the same time they have the variables which change, and DP goes over quite a bit in his analysis. So tag on that one.
Yeah.
All you DP.
All right. Okay, so exactly what Brett said. When it comes to the actual standard pricing, I think that most people can agree that 4K for 50 shards or 8K for 100 shards, it being 80 gems per shard, right? So that to me is the standard where I draw the line at what is considered a good deal or not a good deal, and that's where we look at a lot of the variable packs. So in terms of the variable packs, I tend to just look at the average between the spread because there's obviously going to be a lower and upper limit to all of them. So as long as your average is under the 80 gems per shard, technically it's a good deal. But that being said, for example, if you look at the jumbo pack, which is 9K, which is a really expensive pack, it's barely under. It's just like 70-ish, just under 80. And in that case, it's one of the technically still good, but then you might still get hosed if you pay 9K and get 100 shards, because then you're paying 90 gems per shard. So it's all these variable packs are a gamble, and there's no ifs and or buts about it. And the only thing is that, like I often write in a lot of my analysis, is that when you invest into it, you have to think about investing at least in a couple or a few packs so that you can sort of mitigate that variability. Right, but okay. That being aside, the one thing that I want to segue in from variable packs is the fact that recently, in the last 2 months, they've been increasing the number or the types of variable packs and other packs in general. So they've increased the variability of packs as a whole. They've increased the frequency in which packs are put out. And they've actually changed some certain types of packs distribution. So, for example, PvP packs, and they've included new stuff like alliance packs, obviously. So, in terms of the store in general, they've made a lot of improvements, and I think that we can all agree that more content is better than less content. So in that sense, they've come a long way.
Hmm.
Agreed.
Now, sorry, go ahead, Ogre.
I was just agreed.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Segueing from that, now I want to ask, what do you guys think about the prices in the stores in reference to alliance missions? So, for example, say they have sales in the store, sure, they might have an average price, but now when you have to invest more into things like energy, when you have to invest in things more like refreshes for gear events,
Hmm.
things like that, what do you guys think about, rather than the abundance of sales of characters, the lack of energy sales? Because I remember at one point there was a time where
Hmm.
every single week we would get a sale of like 500 energy for this much, or you'd get
Hmm.
double PvP energy for the
Hmm.
price. Now those have all but disappeared.
Hmm.
So do you think this is perhaps a wise money grab type thing? Or do you think that perhaps the energy sales aren't really quite so important in the overall scheme of things? Ogre, you first.
Okay, so I think this one's definitely a double-edged sword. It it is one of those things that I know players were really excited when it happened. Oh hey, double energy, woo, or cheaper energy, whatever it was. I think it was 400 for 250 energy, something like that, instead of the normal 500, and you still got the 30 Speed Force was the sale in particular that you're referring to, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or you got 15 PvP energy instead of 10 or something. I don't remember exactly what those were.
It was
I
like
didn't really.
30 for 200. So yeah, basically 150 for
It
that.
basically a double or 1.5 times or whatever. But anyway, I think those were good while they were around, but I think a lot of people got used to them and got used to the idea of them when they had the sales. They never got rid of the regular price. So I already knew that it wasn't going to be a long time thing. And I know a lot of players were not expecting it when it went away. And I was just sitting there like, but why? Why didn't you expect it to go away? It's just they were being nice to us for a little while because of, some of the other stuff that they had done. They found that that was the way that they wanted to help us. Whatever. I thought it was great while it lasted. Does it need to be around still? I don't know. I don't think so. Honestly, they give us so many gems at this point. If you go back to the Math is the Friend
Hmm.
series and you actually look up how many gems we earn per month, it's actually increased from that number because of Red Alert now. If you can complete at least through 4, you get 15. If you can complete it all the way through, I think you get 105 extra
Plus,
gems per
also,
day.
whatchamacallit,
So
legendary missions too.
right, and legendary missions also you have additional gems there. So, you know, and we were earning 8,000 gems when I wrote that.
Hmm.
Math is your friend thing. That didn't even include those two things.
Hmm.
So if you do it right, you can earn over 10,000 gems in a month.
Hmm.
And honestly, they don't need to have those kind of sales because they give you so many gems.
Exactly.
All right,
I think.
DP.
I think
Well,
personally.
well, definitely the fact that we have a lot more access to gems than when we started out is definitely a huge point for having or not having certain sales. The one thing that I think about when it comes to the lack of energy sales is it's probably a marketing thing, in my opinion. It's probably the fact that if you saturate the market too much with certain types of sales or products, you sort of take away from that novelty. So when the energy sales came up, they were great. It's sort of the same thing with the 2-for-1 gem sale when it came up, like at the end of last year or the beginning of this year. There was a few of them, right? And now they've replaced, for example, the 2-for-1 gem sales with a character gem sale, right? Which is almost exactly the same if you think about it in terms of value, but a little bit less than 2-for-1. But if you look at the energy sales, right, if they were to bring in an energy sale, let's say next month, around the beginning of September, everyone would go crazy. Everyone would be loving it. And then they would take it away for a while. Everyone would be salty. And then it would come back again, right? And every time they bring it back, everyone gets excited. You know what I mean? So the fact that if they would constantly put it out once a month or once every few weeks, it's great, but it might take away from that. And I do agree that energy is probably where most people want to use the resources. But, anyways, that's my thought of it. It's probably marketing.
So, very interesting question from Prophet,
Mhm.
asking about normal players.
Mhm.
This is going back to the community thing. Normal players who are just playing the game and aren't doing the extra research and stuff and
Mm.
finding the Reddit,
Mhm.
they have no idea about Ogre's whole
Mhm.
strategies and your pack analysis. So do you guys think that if they're not able to strategize, that they're just buying from the shop?
I was like that. I was like that personally until just before the Supergirl event in December, and that's when I found the Reddit, and that's when I started reading stuff. Right up to that point, I was just doing whatever. And to be honest, I was one of those guys that says, let's buy this the superhero pack or whatever it was, the biggest one, the one that's like 4K or 5K, I can't remember how much it is.
4K.
Yeah, and I got like 20 or 40 shards of Sinestro.
You're
So
probably like, whoa, I have this guy.
yeah, and actually for that reason, I started leveling Sinestro because I thought Sinestro was so great, and then I started reading the Reddit and it was like Sinestro's crap. So yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of players who don't have access to like most of the community, that don't have that strategy, unless they're savants and they can sort of piece that together themselves, they're probably just flailing around and doing willy nilly, and a lot of
Oh
resources are
man,
just like disappearing.
maybe it's a conspiracy. The reason WB doesn't have our community as the community center is because they know we'd inform the uninformed masses, and
Yeah.
then they would rise up in rebellion.
Small,
Like we're Prometheus, and they're chaining us to the rock.
right. Small point that I kind of wanted to address a little bit earlier. When we talk about different types of players in terms of financial commitment, you already kind of said that you're a bit of a whale. Ogre, where do you stand?
I have put $100 of my own into it, so I'm
You're a
less than
guppy.
Dolphin.
Yeah.
I'm less than Dolphin, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a
You're
guppy.
smack-
I would say
you're a
I'm
guppy.
I'm like Ogre, but I spent a little bit more. Like up until about a couple of months ago, I was at the same point as Ogre, and then Superman pack rolled out again, and then okay, I have to go put deep into that again. So, but I would say that if Ogre is less than a dolphin, then I'm a dolphin, right? So my point here, right?
God, if that makes you a dolphin, I'm like Moby Dick over here. In fairness,
Okay.
in fairness, I've only spent a few, maybe $300-400 of my own money into this, but I have not very creative people who buy presents for me a lot, and it's always iTunes. In total, I've easily put about, let's say, going from way when the game first began up until this point, going through all the holidays and all that jazz, I have sunk about probably $8,600 worth of just iTunes into
Jesus.
the stupid game.
Oh.
Jeez.
Well, I mean,
Whose salary are you paying?
to be fair, like over that much time, it's really not okay. What is that?
No, yeah. It's really not that bad.
But I mean, when you get iTunes, you can't really use them for anything else, and
Right.
I have all the music I
That's fair.
want.
Mhm.
Right? Yeah.
So,
Fair enough.
like
No, I
at
would do the same thing.
Christmas,
I'm not gonna lie.
Christmas last year, I ended up getting just in that one day alone, I ended up getting somewhere around like 2,000 something dollars in iTunes just on Christmas.
Jeez.
And you know what? And I still didn't buy that shitty Superman pack. Part of my language.
we don't speak
But,
ill of Superman.
Enough about my.
Okay.
Okay,
Jeez.
so moving on. Interesting transition there, DP. Speaking on it, those character packs.
Mhm.
What do you think about them? Now, to me personally, if it's between the character pack and the 2-for-1, I'd probably take 2-for-1 just out of the sense of practicality. However, a lot of people are really loving the fact that they can just have a legendary character right away, especially for the events. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, what do you think, Ogre?
About what now? The packs that to just get a legendary character immediately? Like,
Yep, the 250 and 225,000 for $99.99.
yeah, for those who could afford it, great. I'm not one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of players are like that. Like, there's only a handful of players that are going to be able to afford that. And great. For those of you that do it, I support you in all your right to do so. I appreciate that you are supporting this game that I love and play, because without you, I couldn't play it.
Uh-huh.
I can't afford it, so sorry.
But more what I'm asking
As
is,
far
what do you think about it in terms of accessibility? Not just who can buy it, but like if you can, what do you think that does for it?
If you can purchase that, it definitely is worthwhile.
Yes.
Just getting an automatically legendary character is a very big boon, because it does take a long time to get. So if you want to spend the money to shave off, you're saving yourself, weeks.
Yep.
So I think it's definitely, if you can do it, by all means, go for it.
And then
As far
one
as
more thing.
accessibility for the normal player, though, it's not.
And then one more thing before I cut into DP's time anymore.
Uh-huh.
One more thing. So, what do you think specifically about them releasing the packs for the characters in the 500 event? And DP, you can answer all these questions in succession. But Ogre, what do you think about the live
specifically like the Wonder Woman pack when she was the 500 event challenge, the live wire one, and that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically all you're doing is, again, saving yourself time. Like, you're saying, I'm going to buy this pack so I don't have to rerun these events every day, till oblivion and waste all my energy to do everything else. I'm going to just buy it now, do the event once, and be done. So, again, it's just saving yourself time, which is all that really spending any money in this game does anyway. It just saves you time. It doesn't really give you a whole lot extra. Unless you get random characters like Shazam or Joker Clown Prince of Crime, who you just can't get.
Let's not talk about
last
Joker.
time.
We'll talk
Yeah,
about,
I know. You're
talk
salty
Joker.
about that one.
We'll talk about Joker later in this.
All right, I'm vetoing Ogre's ability to continue with statements about Joker.
Okay.
DP, you've been itching to talk. Let's see what you
Sure.
have to say.
I'm going to do this in reverse order so that it's easier to remember. So to start off with the fact that the packs, they're talking about the packs that are featuring the event character for each month. I think that was only twice, right? Well, I guess, yeah. Well, it was Livewire and Wonder Woman. And Livewire and Wonder Woman both are quite exceptional characters. And like Brett said, it's basically just saving time. And in a way, saving time is also saving resources, because the time that you're not spending to rerun that stuff is energy that you're not using that you could be using elsewhere. So in the end, you're still saving money. But then, if you look at it from a practicality or pragmatic point of view, this is an event that you could do basically, quote, air quotes, for free, and not have to spend that money. So you could get a level 5 character technically without having to spend a dime. So the idea of having to spend money on a character that you could have access to their shards anyways is kind of a bit, I wouldn't say stupid, but it's less practical, right? And in another sense, like if you look at the Cyborg Superman pack, for example, or Ares or Nightwing, for example, these are paywall characters that you really can't have access to otherwise. So having their gem packs is a lot more valuable than the other packs. You know what I'm saying? So when you compare these, they're essentially the same product, but they're not the same product. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then, if you now to go back to the pack in terms of value, I think I wrote this somewhere on the Reddit. I can't remember when, but it was probably during the Wonder Woman week or the Wonder Woman theme month when it came up. I think that was the first time it came up. The gem packs. In terms of comparison to the 2-for-1 sales, they're just under the equivalent of a 2-for-1 sale. I think, like, if you think about 25,000 gems, 2-for-1 being 50,000 gems, it's like you're getting 40,000 gems instead of 50,000 gems. Like, that's sort of the math around what the value of the pack is. Like, if you compared it to an 8K pack, and how many 8K packs you would need roughly, it was 100 shards, so yeah. You would need 2.5 packs, right, to get 250 shards. Right, so you need 2.5 packs to get to that. So I equated it to roughly 40,000 gems. It's quite good. Like, it's obviously not a 2-for-1 sale, but it's still quite good. So for people who are going to invest that anyways directly into an 8K pack, Or even if you're going to save those gems and put it into a variable pack, you might even get a better value out of it. The only thing is, obviously, 2-for-1 pack's always going to be better. No, there's no ifs, and, or buts about it. But again, that could be another marketing thing for Christmas time or something. They might bring that back. But this is still a great way to sort of fill that gap, because a lot of people are waiting for the 2-for-1 sales. But now this is great for people who can afford it. I think it's a great way to do it. My personal advice would be, if you're going to invest into one of these packs, probably pick a paywall character, not an event character.
I see. Speaking on that topic, also want to go ahead and bring up their plan right now, where it's a rework and then 2 new characters. Since that plays well into the pay 2-for-1 pack strategy, where you have the event character and the paywall character. What do you guys think about that, where they're only doing 1 a month? Do you think that's fine? You're just happy that they're reworking? Do you think that it should be more? Do you think maybe just 1 new character that's an event and then 2 reworks with more ways to access that character? Like, what's the thoughts here? What's the consensus between you guys?
Ogre, you can go. You can go first. Hello, Ogre. I think maybe Ogre disconnected again. All right.
Okay, you go first, DP.
Okay. In terms, there he goes. So wait. What were we talking about? I just lost my train of thought.
Right. The fact that they're reworking characters.
Right. Okay. Right.
Enough and so on.
Right. In terms of reworking characters, I'm just happy with the fact that they're doing it. Honestly, if they're doing one a month, if they're doing 1 a month, that's great. I would love for them to do more, like 2 or 3 a month. That'd be awesome. But I think that they would quickly run out of characters to rework if they do it that way. So this is a great way to sort of give people what they want, but stretch it out. And I don't see them having to rework any new characters anytime soon, because they just came out. So they're probably going to rework characters that have been out since the beginning of the game. And for the next year or so, we'll probably have all of the core characters that you probably can farm from PvE reworked. That's my guess. In the next year, because that's going to be 12 characters, 13 characters or so. So they might do 2 in a month. But yeah, I don't see them really picking up the pace on reworking characters.
All right, Ogre, what do you think? Assuming you heard the question.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right,
can
cool.
you hear me now?
So,
All right. So, I like that they're doing the rework. Honestly, I really think it's a great idea. I honestly am confused why they chose Superman as the first one. I think there was several other characters that had way more glaring holes, but that's a different story entirely. I love the idea of the rework. I love the idea that they're only adding 2 new characters a month now. It was really hard to keep up with 3 characters.
Yeah.
Honestly, if they went down to 1 character a month and made 2 reworks, it would make it even easier to keep up. But I don't think that's going to happen, considering we do 500 of it twice a month, and gives us all 100 cards that we need. So we still have to have something specific to PvP, where we still want to farm that character through the PvE challenges and stuff. So the rework is
okay.
Well, that was enlightening for the most part. The end, it kind of cut out a bit.
Yeah, it kind of got muffled at the bit.
Oh, it did?
A little bit.
Yeah, just a little.
I'm cutting it out?
No, we got the gist of it, though. It's all good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so perfect segue, because I'm a brilliant host. Power creep. If you guys don't know what that is in the audience, power creep is when releases of new characters or new mechanics slowly phases out the ability for older characters to still compete. For example, say if they released a character that was basically like Bane, but way, way, way better. Like, say his mints never fell off, his power spikes were bigger.
He was super fast.
He wasn't Bane, basically.
Yeah.
That would make Bane power creeped out. Or like, say, what's a character that's in the meta right now, but just barely in the meta? Supergirl. Or Green Arrow, for example. Emerald Archer, of course, not Castaway. If they released a character that was basically Supergirl +1, then Supergirl would be slowly removed from the meta through what's called power creep.
Prophet just mentioned
like Flash.
Prophet just mentioned Flash and Reverse Flash.
Yeah, like Flash was in there as a red kill, where you go in, you flip the coin, hopefully you get heads and kill a red. Reverse Flash is essentially and empirically, for all intents and purposes, a superior Flash.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, in Red Alert. But you know what I mean. Just
Yeah.
in terms of why you would use Flash in the first place,
Well,
Reverse Flash does that, but better.
Well, that's the definition of power creep. I think that's probably the best example of power creep. Yeah.
So, in terms of power creep, what characters do you think are most at risk of being power creeped out, and how would you fix that? Because we're talking reworks. How do you think you could fix some characters? Ogre, go.
Well, my favorite character in the game already power creeped out long time ago. Chemo, whatever you want to call him.
Okay, was he ever in to be creeped out?
I always have loved him. I've always loved him. He's a super tank. But again, this is going to go to my personal thoughts at the end. The HP bug that's been plaguing the area. Anyway. Moving on. Camo is one of the characters I fell in love with as soon as I started playing with him. Cheetah, same thing. Cheetah is one of those niche characters that if you can't get fast enough, she helps you get fast enough. So she's not really going to phase out. But as far as characters that will phase out, like, I can't really name any that are meta characters that are going to phase out.
I'm thinking Robin, personally.
Ooh, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Okay, go ahead. Tell me about Robin.
Well, was he ever meta, or was he just an anti-meta pick?
I mean, he was meta when he came out, kind of. He countered Cheetah, and...
Well, that's the thing. He was just an anti-meta pick.
Well,
he was just an anti-meta pick. He was never meta.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like Robin in general, but whatever. He's not good regardless. But yeah, like, let's say, what's a character that a lot of people used to pick?
Huntress.
No.
Is Livewire better than Huntress?
That's a good
Huntress
question.
is always going to be meta. There's no changing that. Like, as long as evasions are still broken as shit.
Yeah.
Part of my language.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Like Assault Warsuit Lex Luthor, when he first came out, everyone used him.
Yeah. That's a good example. Definitely a good example. I think the biggest problem with power creep, especially with characters like Camo or Lex or...
Whoa,
What?
PP.
What?
Wait, your turn.
Oh, okay.
I
My
mean,
bad.
I was interrupting over because I'm the host and I want to bring up points.
Okay.
But you need to be polite, my good sir.
My
No,
bad,
go
my
ahead.
bad.
Go ahead. I'm enjoying this.
All right, fine. Go ahead then.
What was I saying? Oh, right. When it comes to Lex and characters like Lex, a lot of the reason why they get power creep is because of their speed. There are characters that are very close to what they are, maybe not exactly the same or not like, in every shape or form, but they do effectively the same job and are faster. And that's probably the reason why a lot of them are cut out and get power creeped out, and a lot of people will agree that this is the biggest problem with PvP metagame in general, is the fact that it's too fast, right? And it's always been like that. Well, not always, but for a good long time.
Yeah. I miss the good old days when if someone had an Assault Suit Lex and a Doomsday, you were sweating. You're like, oh man, how am I going to beat this guy and his incredible Doomsday stacks?
Zatanna comes in, purges everybody.
But this was back in the day before people knew that Huntress was good and that Flash was good. So,
yeah.
But I was thinking too, like I mentioned before, like Supergirl, for example. You have like Supergirl existed solely to fix one problem, which was the arrows, and she did that okay. But now Emerald Archer is effectively neutered. Castaway is okay, but he's slowly being phased out. Well, not slowly, but you know what I mean. He's getting phased out eventually, I'm sure. And then you have Superman, who is basically just a better Supergirl in terms of aggressive compositions, which is where you'd want him. And then you have Aquaman, who outright stops crits. And so, it's hard to exactly pin down what Supergirl even accomplishes anymore. And she's a fast character, too.
Yep.
But it feels like nowadays she's more or less just a buff stick for Firestorm.
Definitely.
So, So like if I had to fix Supergirl, I probably wouldn't be able to do it because her being good is directly tied into other characters also being good because she's a character made to stop other characters. Now Aquaman's always going to be good. If you can stop crits, you basically stop 99% of what makes characters good in this game. But, with Supergirl, getting crit means that you're either dead or dying. And, she had her little stint as like, oh, Reverse Flash, Castaway, but now the Castaway's much worse. Not much worse, but, almost reasonable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. But do you have any thoughts on that?
So, yeah, what do you think, Ogre?
Over? You saying something? Hello. Okay, wait. I think he disconnected again. Yep.
Okay, well that's fine. This is rehearsal. So
Okay.
anyways.
There's one thing I want to say about.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear
Holy
you.
shit.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Oops.
For some reason, I'm turning off. So I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think Supergirl phasing in and out, Castaway again. Like, characters are going to come and go as the meta shifts, but unfortunately, the meta doesn't shift because it's all speed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, goes back to the HP thing. If characters had the HP that they were intended to have, and Grundy was this super tank, and Assault Suit Lex was this super tank, and they actually could do the job that they were supposed to do, maybe they would have a place.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like,
Actually, that segues perfectly into my next point, which is going to be one of the final things about the topic we're on right now. Speed versus crit. Now, there are, of course, characters like Reverse Flash who are not only fast, but have the highest possible crit chance. That's absurd. But what do you think is more impactful in the overall flow of the game? The ability to crit reliably or the ability to move first?
that's tough.
Ooh,
That's a tough one.
I honestly think it's crit reliably. Can you guys hear me?
I would probably
Yeah?
agree with
Okay.
you, but for the sake of discussion, I'm gonna go with speed.
Well, too bad, DP.
Huh?
Ogre claimed crit reliably, so you're stuck with speed. Now
Okay.
argue it out.
Well, go
And
ahead.
the reason I said it is because, again, the HP just isn't there. If you crit, you kill him. That's all it is.
That's true. That is very true.
Hmm.
But the argument,
All right.
the argument also being that I guess speed ties into crit. The fact that if you go first, you have the first chance of actually critting. So
Exactly.
Right.
So they're not empirically separated or anything. They're definitely tied together to a degree.
Right. But which is more impactful is what I'm asking.
I think the 41% chance to crit is more impactful,
Interesting. Now,
which is what has made Aquaman so good.
Right, exactly. I was gonna say that. When you were talking
Well,
about
too bad.
earlier. Oh yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
speed.
But when you were talking about earlier, when you were talking about characters like Supergirl that were put in to combat certain things, Aquaman was exactly the same thing because Aquaman was put there obviously for to deal with arrows too, like EAGA is basically completely like it's a hard counter to him. But also this is before they fixed the PvP was the affinity balancing. Before they fixed that, Deadshot, Suicide Squad Deadshot was like a terror. He was just running amok. So characters like Aquaman just basically came in, was a one-stop shop to just shut everybody down, and that's what makes him so great. The problem is that if for example they stray away from crit being so important and make other things more important like speed or strength or intelligence or whatever, characters like Aquaman will also then just get power creeped out again because then his utility will no longer be utility anymore.
An interesting perspective. You also have to consider that there are counters in place for crit, but there's technically no counters in place for speed.
Exactly, that's true.
I think Captain Cold was intended to be that. So was Mirror Master. They're not as good as they once were.
Yeah.
Because everything is speed.
The tears they flow for Mirror Master.
Yes.
The subtle nerf, the ninja nerf on Mirror Master. I didn't really understand why they had to do that. Was he that broken? I mean, yeah, he was good, but I don't think he was completely broken. I don't feel like it really needed to be nerfed that way. But anyways,
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think it was necessary, but whatever.
yeah.
And yet, in another brilliant stroke of hostmanship, I have segued us into our next discussion,
Mhm.
State of which will begin with the concept of buffing and nerfing. Whoa, look at you go. So, now this one is going to be another part where I'm going to have each of you take a side on this. Now then, which do you think is the more valid way to deal with characters? Do you think that they should be buffed up to reach higher tiers, or do you think that the higher tiers should be lowered to be more in line with the lower tiers? Do you think the game is more bottom heavy or top heavy? Ogre, I'll let you pick. Actually, wait, I take that back.
No, I'm gonna let DP pick on this one.
Yeah, DP, you get the coin flip this time.
So wait, when you say bottom heavy and top heavy, what exactly do you mean again?
What I mean is that do you think that most of the power resides in the fact that some characters are too good,
Mhm.
or that some characters are simply too bad?
Oh, definitely too bad. I
Okay,
think
then. So you're on the buffing side, Ogre, you're on the nerfing side.
Okay.
All right, so argue the points. Tell me.
like the
Ogre
biggest. Oh, who's going
and
first?
DP.
Ogres first. Okay.
No, just both
Oh,
of you.
okay. Oh, well, if we talk from the buffing side, to go back on what we were talking about a little bit earlier was the character rework. Superman in particular, this character I've been following forever, obviously. But the fact that he was reworked, like in my personal opinion, he got buffed. And he became a character that can be used in PvP, for example, can be used a lot more in different modes of the game. So this brings up a character that was basically dead, no one was touching him, and then here he is again. And I think that that brings into the fact that if they keep doing this throughout the next couple of months or the next few months and make it a continuous thing, I think that that will help PvP get healthier. It'll help rebalance a lot of the characters and make them shine where they wouldn't have, like basically just rotting on someone's roster without level 1 gear 0 whatever you want. So that's my biggest problem, that even though I have a pretty deep roster myself, I probably still, out of the 15 to 20 gear 10 characters I have, I probably only still use maybe 6 or 7 of them, right? So and the problem is just mainly because the other guys, even though I have them quite geared up as for events and so on, I don't use them because they're not good enough, which is the sad part. I want to use them, but I can't.
Interesting. Ogre, tell me, characters being too good, do you think nerfing would be more healthy for the game?
Actually, the funny thing is that everything I've been arguing so far, the HP bug, it would be a huge nerf to everybody that relies on crits and speed. Because if everybody had the HP that they needed, everybody would all of a sudden get nerfed and not be anywhere near as good as they think they are. So yes, I agree that characters should be nerfed in that sense, but at the same time, if you were just to nerf a character, if you nerf one character, like let's say Huntress, let's say she gets less evasion now all of a sudden, or she hits less hard or something, and she's not anywhere near as good. Now, everybody has to scramble and use a bunch of different characters to try and fill that role. So you're actually using more of your roster trying to figure out what to do with that slot than you are by buffing a character and just saying, oh, I'm going to take this one out and put this one in.
An interesting perspective. As a neutral party, personally, I can see the merits and downsides of both of your arguments. Luckily for me, I have the observer effect. Hooray. So, Ogre's side, it's interesting that he says specifically that more HP would be the counter towards speed and crit. However, I have to counter it with the idea that, say every character got more speed, if the top tier characters get nerfed down, that doesn't mean that there's not still very good characters that would take their place. For example, say you nerfed Huntress, that makes Cheetah more powerful for her acceleration properties. If you nerf, say, also her percentage damage. If you nerf, say, I don't know, CAGA again, and make him way like let's say you tie his passive into his ability to be invisible, then all you're basically doing is trading him out for someone else that's slightly good. No matter what, there's always going to be. So nerfing has its merits that it brings other characters in line, but it's pretty hard to warrant saying that would make the game particularly healthier, because all it would do is shift the power. Shift the power back, sure, but now on the side of buffing things, you said Superman, for example. Sure, he's a usable character now, but that doesn't mean that he's a particularly good character, I'll say. Like, he's a good character, he's usable, but why would I pick him over a ton of other really good leaders? And let's say they bring up other characters to the point where they're quote unquote viable. That doesn't change the fact that the top tier are still the top tier. You wouldn't use Chemo if he was giving an extra 30 speed, because he's still Chemo. He's still not great. And on top of that, buffing characters just means more cost on the player. And so does nerfing the characters, obviously, because you're wasting resources either way. Either you're gearing up a new character or you have all the gear already spent to an old character. So it's tough to say which one would be more healthy, but they're good cases on both sides. It's just tough to really.
Well, I think the key here is to use them in conjunction and balance everything.
I think that to add on to what Ogre's saying, that a lot of new characters, especially, and this is quite evident with Power Creep, is that a lot of them are just Swiss Army knives. Their kits are so well rounded, or they're so good, they can go into any team composition, and it's a lot less about balance and synergy. And I think that this game should be more about balance and synergy, because it adds to the interest, it adds to that level of complexity. We don't have that in the game because we're just playing the best 4 characters on any team. And to sort of play the bipartisan part, and taking from what Ogre said, I agree that the fact that if they changed the HP or fixed the bugs so that HPs were what it's supposed to be, that would be a buff and a nerf at the same time. So it's good and it's bad for depending on which side of the coin you're on, but it's definitely something that needs to be done. And people have been complaining about this from the past. I think maybe they want to do this, but it's something very hard for them to figure out, because maybe they don't exactly know why it's bugging out.
Interesting.
It could be that, or it also could be because we've been using it for so long in this way that they don't want to just completely change everything on us.
That's true.
That could be another thing.
I don't think they're quite so benevolent, personally. I think the more of the mindset of, well, people are complaining, but not loud enough, so why change it, Because, it's an easy change, but that's still work, and if they don't see the work being worth it, if we're still going to play the game regardless, then, they're not going to change it.
Right. Fair enough.
Okay.
But a nice segue from there into the next topic. So, speaking of the meta, top tiers and bottom tiers, we got some new characters entering the thing. We got Livewire, Cyborg Superman, regular Superman. How do you think any of these have impacted the meta? Ogre, I'll start with you.
Well, I definitely think Livewire has made her mark. Definitely. I don't know. We'll see. I need a little bit more time on Cyborg Superman. You haven't seen him yet, really. So, for those who have him, I'm sure they love him because he looks really cool. He's Cyborg Superman. He's awesome. But his kit looks really good. He seemed really strong when I was fighting him through the Livewire event. So whether or not he is actually that good is yet to be seen to me. And as far as Superman, I think the people that want to use him are going to use him. And it's not going to really change his standing in the meta, really. You'll see him now more than you did because you didn't see him at all before. So, but as far as it goes, you're not going to see a ton of him.
Interesting. DP, your thoughts?
To touch on the last thing that Brett said about Superman, I'm actually one of those people who would say that, like, whatever Superman is or is not doing, oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What I was saying about Superman was that I'm one of those people that no matter what he is doing or is not doing, I would try to use him in any team composition if possible, but it's actually the opposite. because I have my staple 6 or 7 characters that I rotate in and out of PvP, and Superman doesn't really fit into what I want to be using him for. I do use him when I come across like a physical heavy team composition, and I'll just put in more energy guys, and he'll just beat the crap out of them. But it's really not that impactful. I'm sad to say. I really wish that it was more, but his leadership ability, which is what really sold him for a lot of people, it's quite niche. You know, it's one of those abilities where because of the fact that everyone goes before him and a lot of it's AoE damage, his taunt and his death immunity or damage immunity doesn't actually matter until you get around to him later in the matches or later in the rounds. So a character like Aquaman or Supergirl would probably fill a better role for most of PvP for whatever you're doing, right? But then when it comes to Cyborg Superman, I really hope that he's really good. I haven't really seen him. I've come across him in PvP, but I just basically like 1 or 2 shot him with a Mystic, so I don't really get to see what he does. He's not that fast, so he does. But from what I've seen in what's the word, in the event challenges, he seems to be quite good if he gets going. But that's the biggest problem. Again, we're going back to that whole speed crit problem. But anyways, Livewire, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. She's the 3rd fastest character in the game. She's got evasion. She's got counterattacks. She's, I would say, almost broken. Maybe she is broken. Maybe it's fine to say that she is broken. She's been easily substituted into the standard meta team, arguably creating the new meta team. Well, switching one of the other characters in the meta team for her. So the only thing that I think that makes her slightly less broken than one of the other like staple meta team characters is that her AI is not that smart. So that could be fixed, or maybe it's intentional. I don't know. But for example, when she buffs or when she should be like doing certain attacks, it's completely. I feel it's really random. But at the same time, as someone's pointing out in chat right now, her RNG is really, really crazy. Like she'll sometimes never counterattack, or other times she'll get 2 counterattacks in a row and just wipe your whole team away. So.
Another thing I noticed is that a certain character has been popping up more in the meta that was completely swept under the rug. I think it was last month, and that's Nightwing. I noticed a lot more teams using them. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Ogre? Ogre's still there? Nope, Ogre's gone.
Okay, well, you go ahead, Deep.
Well, the thing is, Nightwing is another one of those characters like Cyborg Superman that I haven't had a chance to try out yet. I really want to, but I've only had the pleasure of just playing against him, and he is fast, but not fast enough. I feel, again, bringing up that issue again. I think that the biggest appeal to him is the fact that he has call assists, because having call assists makes really interesting team compositions.
One second.
I'm hearing echo.
Hey, Ogre, take us off speaker.
I know, I disconnected.
Sorry. We're talking about Nightwing. What's your thoughts on Nightwing? He kind of got swept under the rug.
Now it's here.
Nightwing, I definitely think he is. He's a good character based on his kit. I think he definitely could fill a lot of roles. As far as if you have him, if you don't have him, well, you don't need him.
I see.
Hey guys.
And
just to give a little bit of time reference right now, we're about 20 minutes over our expected time. So we probably should speed through a little bit of this. We could put a lot of what we want to talk about here into the next podcast. So.
Right. Okay, well then let's blow through some topics. Woo, hyperspeed. All right, so we talked about the meta basically. Ways to tackle the meta. Let's just blow through that real fast. What do you guys think in terms of counterance? I'm thinking Wonder Woman, Defender of Justice to counter Livewire because of the taunts and the what we call it?
Lasso.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Wonder Woman is probably the best counter to a lot of things going on right now, but yeah, definitely her. The character that I've basically fell in love with since the Wonder Woman event is Catwoman right now. Catwoman is awesome in PvP. Catwoman, she can the way that her legendaries work makes it really interesting. Based on basically, it doesn't really depend on what leader you're up against. If it's Hal Jordan, Aquaman, Supergirl, or whatever, her purge and her stun, based on the way the ordering of the abilities work, she'll always purge first and always stun, even if you have stun immunity. So the fact that characters like Wonder Woman can rack up a billion buffs, she just wipes them all away with one attack. And I'm surprised. It's surprising to see that how much damage she actually does. I've critted with her basic on some mystics and one-shotted them. So she's surprisingly strong.
Hmm.
Ogre, any thoughts on countering the meta or dealing with the meta? Did he disconnect again?
I don't know. His silence is telling. Either he agrees or
I hear muffling.
might be
No,
Oh wait, there we go.
can't hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay.
There we go.
So my thoughts have always been, you can go back to my team crafting to hear this one.
You're a bit muffled again here. It's hard to hear you.
How about now?
Bet better. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my thoughts have always been, if you can build a synergy-driven team, you can take on the meta all you want. The meta is literally just the top 100 showing their money, but that's, my opinion.
Interesting. All right, moving on to the next thing. Actually, we covered a surprising amount of these topics in the middle of our other topics.
Yeah.
What's it called? Favorite characters. Duh.
Sure.
So everyone knows DP is a Superman. I'll just go ahead and save you the 20 minutes of him gushing about that. Ogre, what's your favorite?
It's really hard to hear you, Brett.
Can you hear me now?
Not
Nope.
really. Wait, hello? Say something.
Hello?
Nope, still hard. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, how about you go?
Oh, okay. Well, to probably no one's surprise.
How about now?
Oh, better.
Shit.
There we go. Good timing. Go ahead. Favorite character, go. No, I can't hear you again now.
I would say my
Okay.
personal favorite character to use is probably, the bleeders. All of the bleeders in general. Camo started my love of bleed and has driven me forward.
Interesting. So it's chemo then, basically.
Basically, yeah.
All right, that's cool. That's respectable. That's respectable.
All right.
Although I do have a lot of fun using Grundy.
Big body. Understandable.
Yeah.
You are an ogre, so
Right? He's the closest we got.
Zombie? Zombie ogre.
so not that anyone cares, obviously. But my favorite character is Firestorm, because ever since his inception, I've appreciated the fact that he's basically made a new kind of way to handle a match. It's not just, oh, I'm gonna punch this guy and I'm gonna punch him again and I'm gonna punch him till he's dead and then move on to the next guy, or oh, I'm just gonna do AOE after AOE after AOE after AOE. Instead, it's like, I'm gonna front load 8 million buffs into this one person and then watch him blow his load all over the enemy team. And whatever. But it's super nice because you have characters like I don't know, Huntress and Suicide Squad Deadshot, who you blast them with a bit of a nuke, and then out of nowhere they're like, "Oh man, I was a superior character. What happened to me?" Because back in the day, when Suicide Squad Deadshot was at his prime, I never thought he was a problem because I would just kind of blow through him with Firestorm, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's tier 1." When I was making my tier list here, everyone and their mom was like, "Why isn't Suicide Squad Deadshot tier 1?" And I'm like, "Because he's not good? I don't know. What are you talking about?" And everyone was like, "Oh, he's amazing." But I had never realized it, I guess, because I was just like, "Oh, Look, it's a Suicide Squad Deadshot. There we go. Oh, what a shame.
So
Him and the two other arrows right next to him. And then possibly the final guy. I don't know. But, that's just, it's so nice to just have a character that can end a match before the opponent even gets a turn.
from a small point, like everyone knows that Superman is my favorite character, but in the game he's not my favorite character because I don't use him as much. If I were to pick a character in the game that I use a lot that is my favorite character, sadly, I'd probably think that Green Lantern Hal Jordan's my favorite character. Another one. The only reason is because he was my first character, and I built him up so much, and I was using him so much in PvP for the good part of the beginning of the year, that I have a small affinity towards the Green Lanterns, and also the other Lanterns too, Arceus and John Stewart, of course, they're awesome. But Green Lantern Hal Jordan.
You don't mention the best one.
Yeah, I mean,
Phil.
but that's the thing. Oh, well, yeah.
Race.
Medphil is all broccoli, the master race of vegetables. But anyways, let's move on from there. There's one thing that I kind of wanted to address from the chat that I've been knowing. Everyone's asking, Ogre, are you actually Seth Rogen in disguise?
No, no, I'm not.
Don't lie to us, Ogre. The world needs to know.
I am not Seth Rogen. I don't look like anything like him.
Okay. Apparently you sound exactly like him, and they're talking about the Green Hornet movie for some reason, but...
Hey, whatever.
I can hear it in his voice.
Yeah,
all right, so moving on from there into the other stuff. Community discussion. So...
Someone's starting up the car.
Man, Ogre's taking huge hits. Are we sure he's not Seth Rogen? Like, Jesus, man. Okay, so hate mail, doing the hacker topics, which DP constantly locks and then unlocks and apologizing for.
Is that your car?
It's over by me, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. What were we talking about? Oh, right, the hacker topic.
Not just a hacker topic, but the hacker topics, plural, if you will.
Right.
And you know what? Tie into that also the recent stuff about the Twin City and loot.
Oh, that? Okay. Well, first, hackers in general. I mean, boo hackers, don't like hackers, wish they weren't there, of course. Everyone sort of feels that way, except for the people who actually do the hacking. But in terms of how I feel about its presence of like all those topics on Reddit, personally, I find it annoying. Like, I'm not a fan of it. Not just because I'm a mod, not just because it's my job to sort of police and take care of that stuff, but it's mainly just because if I was just a user reading Reddit to find out stuff, I just don't want to see like a million threads of the same thing just all over the place, and I can't find what I'm like looking for. Although I know that you can use the search function to find stuff, I actually do rely on what's on the hot tab and the new tab to see what's going on. And that's where floodgating came in a while back, and my job got from a little bit difficult to very, very, very difficult. And people were sort of not unhappy with the way things were going, but this was a community decision. This wasn't just us. That wasn't just us saying like, hey, we don't like this banhammer. No, it was more of the community saying we voted on this, we think it's not appropriate, and we feel that these topics shouldn't really be flowing all over the place. They should be controlled and organized. But in terms of the Twin Cities situation, and I think Lost Lantern was the other one.
I don't know.
But when I looked at the evidence there, I definitely see that it was a bit suspicious. But then when I actually think about it in terms of feasibility, I think it is possible to actually do that, but it's maybe unrealistic. But that's again, I'm not someone in the top 10 or top 35 doing those constant pushes, so I can't really know for sure how many points you can rack up. I know that someone posted a video recently. I think it was how do you say his name? Is it hate mail?
Yeah, it's hate mail.
Hate mail, yeah. Hate mail posted a video on it recently. I think was the one he ran through it, just auto battling through 3 or 4 minutes worth of fights, showing how many points you could rack up. I think it is doable, given the right circumstances, like the right hardware and the right setup,
Right.
you could probably do
And
it.
also, plus, you got to think with the notoriety of being number one, he's probably racked up a fair amount of defensive wins from people trying to,
Exactly.
dick measuring contest against the AI.
Right. So, so that, like, just put my opinion on that again. Just, I think it's possible. I don't think it necessarily has to do with him hacking. Personally, I would actually find it a little bit odd that someone who'd spend so much money in the game would actually hack. Hacking would be more for the point of view of somebody who doesn't want to spend resources on the game and wants to just sort of coast and have fun and just they don't really care if their account gets banned or whatever. So someone who committed so much into the game has a lot to lose if their account got banned. So I don't really see that being, I mean, unless you're that baller and your account gets banned, you just start another one and just dump all your resources into that one too. I really don't see the point, you know? You know, that's sort
Yeah,
of just
I mean,
my
me
point of view.
personally, when it comes to the topics, I don't mind them. Like, the times when we have to do floodgating is very extreme. Like, there has to be like 8 topics on the front page within like certain amount of time of one another. Which, that's whatever. We voted on that. That's fine. As far as the hate mail topics, whatever. They're cool. He does his work. I appreciate him. As far as the whole loot in Twin Cities thing goes, I just think it's dumb that people are like, "Oh, stuff closed." Excuse me, I'm a mod. They're breaking the rules. I'm not gonna just be like, "Oh,
Exactly.
well, I better look away." So,
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. Do I think it's possible? Frankly, it doesn't really matter to me because one, I don't play, but two, I'm not fighting for number one. Like,
Exactly.
him being in first place doesn't change the fact that I would be in like 100 or 1500. Like hackers, I could understand that because people were being wrongfully bumped out of top 100. But this just seems like such a non-issue, especially for people to get so heated about.
Right.
What do you think, Ogre? Do you have any thoughts on it?
I have to refrain because I have no idea what y'all are talking about.
Fair enough.
Okay, that's
Alrighty
fine.
then. So,
let's just move on.
moving on from that, on to the next thing.
Shows my lack of time lately.
It's cool. Let's see. We talked about that. I'm back as a mod. No one's surprised because I don't really have anything
I'm
else
surprised.
going on.
I'm probably the most surprised.
Let's see. We answered questions already. Doom thoughts. I've already given enough of those. Blah blah blah. Okay. Thoughts on the community in general. I think we have a pretty damn good community, personally.
Agreed.
I don't get why we're not in the community center, and it hurts my soul.
Oh,
it really does.
I want to talk about that. So about the fact that the Reddit's not there and putting actual numbers to it. I was just looking at the Reddit page. We have almost 4,000 people in our Reddit, right? So we have over 3,000 people already. 3,800, I think, is the number. That's quite a substantial number of people just reading content online. And I don't know exactly the numbers for the official forums, but let's be honest here, for the majority of people who are going to look for online content, isn't Reddit pretty much the front page of the internet as it says on Reddit?
On the front page of the internet?
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm saying is, like, why is that on the front page of the community center? So...
Damn.
Honestly, I still think that one could be a legalese issue.
Yeah, that could be. I could
Maybe.
see that.
I mean, it's WB. Like, it's not like they don't have the resources to do it. But whatever. That's just me being salty. Okay, but cool. We all agree. Reddit community kicks ass. The other community
does.
kicks ass. We got it. It's all good. No offense to the official forums. The people who post there, they're fine. But my God, and this is me going off the record here, don't tell them I said this, but tell them I said this. Their mods are garbage. I am sorry. You don't ban people for speaking out. Like, I understand maybe you feel like you have to because you're on the official forums as a mod, but, like, I think one of the best things about our community is the fact that we're just like, oh, you want to talk about how WB pissed you off? That's fine. We don't care. You have a right to. We're not going to censor you. And then you have people coming over like, oh, I posted this on WB forum. They banned me for life. And I'm like, what the fuck? Excuse my language, but sweet Jesus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one thing I don't agree with any online community. The fact that like people start posting content that you're not happy with, and you just outright ban them. Not just remove the post, not just lock the post, ban the person, like straight up.
Hmm.
I don't agree with that.
Like
Like,
I've
you know,
I've legitimately banned one person on Reddit, which haunts me to this day, and that's because he had over like 130 something reports on
yeah,
since the game's inception, and
yeah,
I was like, okay, I should probably step in and do something about this. And then he broke the actual Reddit rules, and I was like, okay, you get permabanned. I was gonna ban you for a day, but that's no.
right.
So,
Yeah, I remember that too.
man, that's what led
Yeah.
to everything too, like the votes, like everything.
Yeah.
Man, oh
Yeah,
man.
I remember that.
So,
It was dark times.
Mm-hmm.
but let's bring it back to a more positive note. Reddit, awesome.
Right,
The
right.
rest, maybe
Sorry.
not so much.
Yeah,
but
we're honestly, it's basically everything barring the final thoughts. So,
But let's actually open it up to the community a little bit. Let's take a couple of questions from them. So if you guys want to ask us any questions, just type them out. We'll pick one or two, and then try and answer them.
yeah. I mean, we've been answering questions throughout the podcast, but
Mhm.
yeah, I'll take one or two more.
Okay.
I
Just
am not Seth Rogen.
yeah, not Seth Rogen. Just a very quick one. Just a very quick one that Nick wrote. He's talking about the Reddit Gold that apparently our subreddit received. I actually didn't know that Reddit Gold was a thing. To be honest, DC Legends was the first subreddit I ever joined. So it's like that time
Oh,
when
yeah.
it's when I actually started reading Reddit.
DC Legends is why I created an account on Reddit.
Right? Me too, exactly.
So I'm with
So
you.
if you're telling me about
man.
Reddit Gold, I don't even know what Reddit Gold is. So I'd have to look into that.
I didn't know either until I got it.
Yeah.
Man,
So
it was the second subreddit that I ever subscribed
Mhm.
to. But yeah, I didn't know that Reddit Gold was a thing either. And then someone randomly gave it to me, and I was like, I don't know what to do with this. Thank you.
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of how I felt. Yeah.
But
Doom,
Thank you,
okay,
random
so,
stranger.
Doom, you have
Cyborg.
you have a question.
Cyborg.
You have a question, Doom. Can you enlighten us on how you got the name Sperm Whale?
No, let's talk about Cyborg first. Cyborg's the more pressing issue here. Cyborg, underrated or meh? Well, personally, at least for me, I've gotten it to where I can have Cyborg take 3 concurrent turns with a certain composition. I think he's great. But, if you can't really do that, then I think he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's so good at PvE.
I think
my
that
God.
I think Cyborg is actually awesome now, especially with Livewire being a big part of the metagame, because he just ignores all that evasion because he has the 100% crit up. I mean, it's possible that he still misses, but it's very unlikely. Still, but and yeah, he's.
What do you
he's-
think,
he's-
Ogre?
I think he definitely has a place, and with all the evasion coming in, he's definitely going to start seeing more play.
Yeah.
Cool beans. Okay, now
But PVE, he's a god.
how I got the name Sperm Whale. Well, it's a very, very long story. For those of you who don't know, I used to be a exotic entertainer, if you will. I live in Florida. There's some bars here, and it's actually pretty high demand because we're also a military town. Yeah, go figure. So, yeah. I mean, that's not my actual stage name. I have a different stage name, but the whole sperm whale thing started because I was propositioned at one point for indecent acts by a consumer of my actions, and I refused him, of course, because at the time I was not quite 18, but I wasn't working as the exotic whatchamacallit at that time. I was working as just a regular bartender host guy. And it was a friend's bar, so he let me work under the table, hand over fist. But I refused him, and he called me a whale. And it was funny because at the time I didn't play games, I didn't know what a whale was. So eventually I became the exotic dancer folk, and it's a good job, it pays well, all that jazz. And then I come into this game, and I spent so much money, people call me a whale again. And I was like, that term keeps coming up. And then one of my friends next to me was like, you used to be a dancer, doesn't that make you like a sperm whale then? And I was like, that's my new stage name, I guess. It was Johnny Dangerous, or on certain nights, I was known simply as Antonio, and then we had a guy on the side of the stage that would do the little guitar riff, the dun 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 dun, the little Western thing. Good times though. But yeah, that's the origin of Sperm Whale. And
So
if
wait
I
a
ever
minute.
go back into dancing, that's how it'll be.
To be very honest with you, I actually thought that whole conversation before that was written
See
was
his voice cut
was
out
just a
there?
troll.
He's admitting to being one of my customers.
But you know what I mean? Like I thought that all of that was a giant troll. I thought, but now the way you're telling it sounds like it's a very legitimate story. So I don't know what to believe.
Well, I mean, you can believe it if you want, or you obviously. But yeah, back when I was 16, I worked as a host, hand over fist,
Okay.
and then got proposition declined, and then the whole Sperm Whale thing happened way later.
Okay. All right. Well,
So let's see. Okay, Ogre. He wants to know if Jonah Hill is as big a jerk as he seems.
Oh, what? The funny thing is, my name is actually Brett Hill. I have no idea. I'm sorry, I have no idea.
Sure it is, Seth Rogen. You can't fool us. So what's this? Who do you guys think will be the next character to be reworked?
oh, this is a good question.
Let's see. Next month is what? Arrow month, right?
Are we-
Sorry, that's supposed to be a secret. Next month, Arrow month. No, not Princess. I think it's gonna end up being either they're gonna rework Castaway to make him reasonable, or they're gonna maybe rework the Flash. My money is either on the Flash being reworked because they have this bad habit of reworking decently powerful characters, or it's going to be a character that no one uses who's very big into the whatchamacallit, which is gonna be Black Canary.
Okay.
So
Those
are my
That's
thoughts.
quite possible. Yeah, I can see that.
I think Deathstroke personally. But
Yeah,
I
someone
love
wrote,
Deathstroke.
Prophet wrote Deathstroke in the chat. Actually, Deathstroke is probably up there. I think Deathstroke could definitely use a rework, and I think Deathstroke could be a good example of a stat rework too, not just a kit rework.
You know they're not gonna do that.
I don't know. I mean, they could give him a little bit more speed. Good, like for an assassin. How can you be so slow?
That's the thing, though. If they give him more speed, then that'll prove that they can give characters more speed, and then everyone's gonna go crazy.
That's true. I can see that. Okay. Okay.
Yay, rockin' hard place.
All right. I kind of want to wrap things up a little bit quickly because we're approaching
it's
the
all
2 hour
good.
mark. So
Yep, we finished our
yeah.
questions.
We-
So, what do you guys think, community? That's your question for now. What do you guys think? Are we boring? Do I sound 15? Does Seth Rogen?
Am I Seth
entertain
Rogen?
you? Yeah.
yeah. I'll be
I mean, we
recording.
paid a lot of money to get him to guest star here. So, I mean,
I'm recording this, so when it goes up on SoundCloud or wherever later on when we link it, you guys can post on the comments there or on the Reddit link when I post it there too. So if you guys you can listen to it again and then rework your thoughts and write your comments there.
yeah, but I mean, why would you want to listen to this again? I mean, all right.
I'm gonna listen to it because I want to know what I cut out on. And
Yeah.
All right, so next up is Ogre's thoughts on content creation. So tell us, Seth Rogen, what do you think about making movies?
well, no, the content creation thing is I want to get back to it at some point. I know I've been out of it for a little while, and as soon as I find time, I am going to come out with more stuff for you guys. I love creating the team crafting series, and I want to come back out and start doing some more of those again.
I feel you there. I've been so lazy on the insights. Like, I have a break from school, and I haven't even looked at the characters. Well, I have one ready for like 5 of them, but I'm not releasing them yet.
Mhm.
But partially because some of the characters aren't actually out yet. But yeah, I want to get back into my content creation too. I just got to find the right time. And speaking of content creation, DP, do you have something you'd like to ask our lovely audience?
Right. In terms of this podcast, it seems like everything is going quite well for the first run. I mean, there's a little bit of like hiccups here and there, but not so bad. The one thing that I want to ask the community, for those of you who are artistically inclined, a lot more than I am at least, we're probably going to try and take this a little bit further. Maybe try and do this once a month. So for the foreseeable future, if we want to get onto iTunes or Patreon or something like that, we're probably going to need some graphics. So if anyone has an idea of a logo we could have, or some kind of banner or something like that, that features the Oddsman broadcast as it's written on Reddit, minus the typo that Ogre wrote. That would be great. If somebody can help us creating something, that would look cool that we could use, we'll definitely put you in the credits for that. And also in terms of music, I just picked a random song or royalty-free piece of music that I found on the internet to use as the current intro and outro that you'll hear in a few seconds. So if anyone actually can compose something that would be good, maybe a little bit superhero or even super villain-like, that could go
Or if you can
for...
recommend something too, that could be also good. If you can
Right.
recommend us something, if you
Right.
overhear something
Right.
license free and you're like, hey, this would sound great.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So something that would fit us, fit our sort of feel, I guess is the word I'm looking for. That would be great, and definitely we'll give you credit for that too. So I think there's not much else to touch on. Any final words?
You go first, Ogre. I got final words, but I want them to be last.
All right. Yeah, I'm just still looking forward to the HP bug getting fixed someday, but again, it may or may not happen. Question for you, DP.
Yep.
What do you think your time frame will be to release this?
No promises, but if I can edit everything and make it nice and smooth, I hope Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, it'll be up online.
Cool.
All right,
cool.
I figured people were going to ask, so.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, DP, final words.
There's not much else I need to say. A lot of the content that we wanted to say today, like because it's our first run, we didn't get to cover some things, so we'll probably look over that again and do it for the next month. But any suggestions for the next podcast? Please write them in the Reddit where we have currently posted the coming soon that Ogre wrote, or even when I post the SoundCloud link or whatever it is, comment there. And we'll take that into consideration, and it'll help us write our script and our plan for the next podcast.
Now then, for my final words, of course, I want to go ahead and thank my two guest hosts, Ogre, DP. It's been great. Now, do keep in mind, this was our first time through. DP will work on editing it, but honestly, I would actually say release it as it is, and then we can just do the actual podcast, because this was a good practice, and I feel like if we just shape it up, we can make it perfect, and we can probably just run it by next week. But
Mm-hmm.
But
Are we
if
doing
you
it
want
next
to
week or next month?
I don't know. We could do it next week in just a single run. But if you're editing it out and want to post this, that's fine too. We can cover
Well,
it next month.
it's more about a time commitment for me in terms of
Yeah, I
how often we
understand
can do
that.
this. Yeah. Well, we'll think about it.
Yeah. But one last thing, of course, is that of course, thanks to the audience too. Glad you guys were listening and all that jazz. But
Can't do it without you.
yeah, we couldn't do it without you. I mean, we could, but it wouldn't get us anywhere. But
Right?
so we were thinking, or I was thinking, because I'm overly ambitious, about maybe eventually down the road we would start doing other content as well. Maybe like you could watch all of us be shit at Minecraft, or you could watch all of us be shit at, well, two of us be shit at StarCraft, and then But
DP crush our souls.
yeah, stuff like that. Other fun things, and of course we'd have to get there eventually. But the main point I want to bring up is we want to involve some of you guys in there with us as well. So if you guys want to volunteer to be on the show next time or anything like that, I mean, feel free to just let us know. I mean, we're always looking for guest stars, and we're gonna obviously try to get some top 100 players in here for perspective or some other content creators. But you community guys are just as important to us as anyone else, really. So if you guys say, hey, I want to be part of the Oddsman, I want to hang out with you guys, talk it up, tell Doom he sounds shitty on the microphone, or feel like, if you want to hang out with Seth Rogen, that's cool too. And but the main point is just let us know, We're happy to have you guys, and hopefully you'll have us next time. So roll that outro.